American gangsters, 'cause we speak bold, ain't tripping on the haters. It could take freedom from a cold dead hands, we're locked and loaded for the last dance. 'Cause we're the new American gangsters, ready to die for this man.
Well, good evening, Shelby. How the heck you doing?
Good. How about yourself, Brian?
I'm doing fantastic. Yeah.
Well, welcome everybody to the We the People podcast. We've got some exciting news that you may not be aware of. We the People USA Alliance is officially now recognized by the IRS as a 501c3 nonprofit. So donations made to We the People are fully deductible.
100% true. And so we'd ask you, to dig down. And if you want to support the cause of what we're going to talk about tonight, which is transparency with respect to elections in the state of Arizona, there should be nothing more important to residents of the state of Arizona than transparency in how their elections are run. And so,
Right. Even if you're somebody who sits on the fence, maybe you don't believe that there's problems with the machines. Maybe you think mail-in ballots are fine. Maybe you believe that all in all, the elections are ran a certain sort of way. The one thing I think everybody should agree on, and if you don't, you might want to reevaluate kind of where you stand, is that our government should be fully transparent to we the people. Our Constitution was established that way.
right.
Where those that we elect to represent us answer to us, and
Right.
we are effectively their boss,
Right.
right?
Yeah, and the whole purpose, right? Our government is written down. It was historic, right? That all of these young men came together and said, "We want to write our government down. We want everybody to know what the rules are that are being played by." Right. And the very purpose of things like Arizona's Public Records Act and Public Records Act in other states, or the Freedom of Information Act with respect to the federal government, the very purpose is so that we can ensure that the government is governing in accordance with those written rules, right? And so whether it be the federal government, the state government, the county government, your city government, they all have a charter by which they function, or some form of constitution, and so the people having the ability to get records from that government to ensure that it's performing its functions pursuant to the law is incredibly important. It's absolutely necessary, isn't it, if we are to have a free government of the people, for the people, by the people?
Oh, absolutely. The reason that we find ourselves in so many messes, let's just look what's going on with the SNAP program, right? So we have the Supplemental Nutrition Program, essentially a food stamp style program. It's funded by the federal government to help supplement low-income families. We have, recently discovered that there is mass amounts to the tunes of millions and millions of dollars being abused through fraud and waste. And, if that was a transparent program where the people had access, that may have been caught a lot sooner. Now we have an administration now that is trying to cut back on fraud, waste, and abuse. And we're finding states are actually pushing back against the federal government who is funding these programs and saying, no, you can't look at our records.
Right. You can't look at our books. Yeah. And I think it's important to point out, I think people really need to understand fundamentally that the pushback is the pushback, to conceal fraud, waste, and abuse, right? And it's happening across the entire spectrum. And so you have Minnesota's the biggest example, billions of dollars of fraud in these federal government supported systems that are largely flowing out of the country or flowing through the pocketbooks of many elected officials in Minnesota. There's going to be a lot coming out about that, but supporting radicalized groups in the United States, like the Muslim Brotherhood, right?
Absolutely.
And so, but it's not just with respect to that. They're doing the exact same thing with respect to voter registration databases, aren't they?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, Brian, and for those of you listening, that most concerns me is we have Freedom of Information Acts at the
Mhm.
federal level. And we have every state has a very comparable style law that requires that public bodies provide records to the people.
Yes.
And this has historically not been an incredibly big issue. I think
Nope.
one of the first times, aside from elections, it really came to the forefront of the public was the questions over COVID. When they asked questions about the COVID vaccine and the studies and tests, I think they got a reply that it would be like 37 years to fulfill the public
Right.
records request, something
Right.
completely absurd. But aside from that, it's always been fairly consistent, right?
Uh-huh.
And what we've seen in our elections is if you were to say public records request ballot images, the vast majority of states would provide those, and some still do. But then, as time progressed, fewer and fewer states were willing to provide something like a ballot image.
Right.
And Arizona, to my knowledge, hasn't done it for far longer than many, but there are still states doing it. So there is no consistency of law. There's nothing declaring what does and does not constitute a record, right? So we have cast vote records, for instance, right, Brian?
Right.
Initially, all of the counties in Arizona were providing cast vote records.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was some were, some weren't. Then some were, but they were redacting stuff. And it just continued and continued until eventually they said, nope, no longer a public record.
Right.
So these public bodies are going before the courts or forcing the citizens to go before the courts. And they're just very, I believe, discriminatorily deciding what is and what is not a public record and completely going outside of what a public record is.
Right.
And it's very frustrating. In Texas, so we work with another group, I would say kind of a sister organization, so to speak. We're not affiliated, but we work with election integrity groups everywhere, right? And in Texas, now anytime the public records request anything, they're redacting anything and everything in the
Right.
files that are of any value.
Right.
So the more we learn about how elections operate, the less access they want to give us to the records to know how they're operating. So instead of trying to save embarrassment by being, I don't know, better and following the law, they'd rather conceal it.
Right.
And it's quite disturbing.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. You get people like Adrian Fontes, right, who routinely gets his butt kicked in court. More recently, they were trying to conceal from the public and from members of the Arizona legislature all of those, was it tens of thousands of voters that were affected by this, what they call glitch in the motor voter.
It was around 219,000 voters statewide.
Yeah, and Adrian Fontes says, "Oh, I'm just trying to protect your personal confidential information from these people because we know they'll use it for ill," right? And, you have to understand what their definition of use for ill is. Use for ill in their lingo, just like their lingo with respect to cleaning up the fraudulent welfare rule or the fraudulent Medicaid.
Right. Well, their
is
excuse for not
removing fraudulent people.
right. Exactly.
Right. And that's what they mean by ill, right? And so without the ability to get public records to see what our government is actually doing, that's how these billions of dollars in Medicaid fraud have been allowed to happen, is because the people are not allowed to be a check and a balance on the proper function and operation of their government, whether it be at the local, state, or federal level. And they're doing the exact same thing very, very actively in Arizona with respect to your elections and election-related records.
Well, and it's absurd to me, and I press on this, and I use these analogies as often as possible when I talk to people. It is absurd to me that we have people coming out, Kristi Noem coming out and saying, in this one state, there's been millions of dollars in taxpayer money just wasted to fraudulent payout, right? People
Right.
who don't exist, duplicate benefits, etc.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, if we sit here, Brian, and we
Right.
say 18,000 ballots arrived in Maricopa County that we can't account for, that's taboo.
Totally.
You can't.
Right.
How would you imagine that a
Right.
county would be able to not account for 18,000 ballots? Well, I don't
Right.
know. Every day around this country, there's $18 billion that goes
Right.
missing they can't account for.
Right.
And we're supposed to just say, oh, but you're the election
Oh,
expert.
yeah, you're the expert. You're the expert, right? And so that's the type of government, Adrian Fontes. That's the type of government, Hobbs. And dude, God, what the hell is the name of your AG?
Chris Mate.
Oh, Chris Mays. That's the kind of government they're working to build, is a government that you cannot see inside of,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
And that should scare the hell out of everybody, right? Because a government with enough power to take from one person to give to another has the power to completely decimate you to make the other person, whatever they want them to be. And so,
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
look at the IRS, right? Like
Uh-huh.
I've always said, and you may disagree, Brian, but I've always kind of explained it. I believe the IRS is a bureaucratic agency
Hmm.
that takes your money, your hard-earned money from you,
Right.
to use it to extort politicians to act against your best interest. So they're
No,
basically
I,
using our money.
I disagree.
They
I
come in and they offer
yeah.
these grant programs.
I 100% disagree.
Okay, so tell me.
It is not the IRS, it is Congress.
Well, no,
It is
Congress uses the
Congress.
money. The IRS takes the money and then Congress
Right.
uses it to
Okay.
extort. Yes,
Yes, Congress
that
uses
clarity
it
is
to buy your
important.
votes.
Hmm.
They use it to buy votes from different constituencies, one of them being the Somali constituency in Minnesota. And that's why we have billions of dollars of your hard earned blood, sweat, and tears that have just been pissed away over to whatever country they happen to have disappeared to. It's my understanding quite a bit of that money has gone to terrorism. But we're going to talk a little bit about trying to raise funds to help us do what we do, right?
Okay, yeah, let's talk about it.
So
We
we're
don't
gonna
ask for money
take a
much on
breather.
this.
We
We're not very good at this, people, so
We're not
bear
good at
with us. This
Right,
is new. We're
yeah,
we're going there.
I'm such a bad salesman. I couldn't even sell really good used cars, for half price.
Is that why you became
Yeah.
an attorney? Because you
Well,
failed in the used car industry?
No, I became an attorney because I just absolutely, right. When I finally decided to get an education, I absolutely fell in love with Lady Justice. This concept of liberty, right, and blind justice, and it's questionable these days. Right.
Right.
Whether or not Lady Justice has her blindfold covering both eyes completely or not.
And I think that's what's making you so passionate in this
Yeah.
fight with us, right?
Yeah. And so, a lot of you that are watching probably also know that I do a lot of photography, right? And so while Shelby was here working all weekend, slaving like a dog, right? I was up doing some higher elevation winter camping with my kids and my niece. We all came together from different parts of the West, and we spent 3 days up there. And so, so what I want to do is I want to show you sort of two photos, and really it's because this is in my mind this place I have where I go. Not many people go, right? because not very many people know about it. But it's actually, I believe, the most phenomenal view in the entire state of Arizona in the winter, right? Because Arizona is an incredibly beautiful state otherwise. And so, Steve, let's see here. I'm trying to figure out.
Oh, we've got one up.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
There we go.
And so this was taken on the first night of our trip. This is the night after the full moon, and so there was a whole lot of light provided by the moon. So much so it washed out most of the stars. Flagstaff is sort of in the middle on the other side of that mountain range, and so what you're looking at is Sunset Crater. It's a volcano in the state of Arizona that had erupted at one point, and so you can see the crater there on the left side of the mountaintop. And then the mountains to the right are the San Francisco Peaks, right? And they're all covered in snow. Absolutely beautiful, right? And so let's go. So this was the first night. Now there was a whole lot of solar activity taking place because of this, comet Atlas that's approaching the Earth, messing with the sun. And so there was a whole lot of solar activity. And so this is 2 nights later. This is a photo actually taken last night when there was a lot of aurora related activity in the sky. So let's see the next one, Steve. Thank you, sir. And so you can see that, the hues in the sky. Of course, the moon was not out at this point in time because it rises later. But you can see, the Milky Way arm to the right over the San Francisco Peaks. And the color, the purples is, what you get sometimes when you get some lower level aurora activity that comes down as far as the state of Arizona. So in order to raise money, what we're looking to do is, if anybody wants to make a contribution to We the People USA Alliance in the amount of $500, we will send you a 16 by 24 inch print of this image, or the other one if you prefer it, on aluminum. And so, they very durable. They print very, very nicely on aluminum. Look beautiful hanging on any wall. And so we're not very good at asking for money. I don't like to ask for money. We do a lot of work, right? We do a lot of legal work. We're in court all the time, and
everything costs money.
It costs money.
It costs money to
And
keep
so,
going. Especially when you got to fight for public records all the time, right?
Yeah, and especially when you're talking about like Adrian Fontes, right? They bring, again, that case that Alex Culloden was in with respect to the voters, the voter registration, 200-some thousand, right?
219,000.
Yeah, Adrian Fontes brings in some expert from Chicago, of all places, right? There's States United type, right?
Absolutely.
All these lefties affiliated with States United out there trying to make us out to be a bunch of radical kooks, right? Yeah, and we're not radical kooks. We're just normal people who want to make sure that our government is functioning the way it's supposed to function. And so with that, we, if you want to make a contribution, we would love, we terribly need your assistance, and help keep us on air and help keep us in court, so that we can keep fighting for election integrity. Right.
Absolutely. And those images that you saw, they're one of a kind. And Brian does phenomenal photography work, but a piece like that is well worth beyond $500. It costs almost that just to go in and have an image printed to that size and quality. So, it's just a token of our appreciation. If you choose to make a donation, then it's something that you'll have for perpetuity, and it's a beautiful representation of Arizona,
right?
And the beauty of Arizona. But we continue to struggle, not just in Arizona, but all across the country with these transparency issues, and it's not going to end. And the only way we're going to be able to combat it is if the citizens start engaging.
Right.
And not everybody can put in constant public records requests. Not everybody can go to court and battle these, but everybody can play a role. And,
Mhm.
some people volunteer and they do research or
Mhm.
they read the public records request, right? They
Right.
do things to assist in that way. And sometimes people make financial contributions, but it takes all of the citizens doing their part to hold our government accountable. And again, the elections are the area where we're having, I think, the most stonewalling. And the other thing I want to talk about when it comes to public records that I think are really important, and I don't think we can say it enough, Brian, is our election system is being subcontracted out to
Mhm.
private corporations, from
Yep.
ballot printing to ballot mailing to sometimes tabulation.
Right.
Well, oftentimes tabulation, because these companies are usually in charge of the equipment even after the taxpayers pay for it,
Right.
right? And uh, we have the Star Center here in
Mhm.
Maricopa County,
Right.
which is a subcontractor that helps
Mhm.
cure ballots. So large majorities
Right.
of our
And,
elections are being
you know,
subcontracted.
and don't forget about where it all begins, and that is with voter registration. You've got a lot of these non-governmental organizations. Now they're not paid by the government to go out and do what they do, but they're paid by somebody that wants them to achieve a certain goal,
Absolutely.
a certain very highly partisan goal. And so you get people willing to do stuff for money that they wouldn't otherwise do for free, and so that's where it sort of begins, is with these non-governmental organizations doing voter registration. And then, you mentioned that the tabulators, don't they have Dominion employees that are working in the MC Tech?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Same thing with
Yeah.
ES&S.
Right.
If there's software updates, things that need to
Right.
be done, changes or modifications
Mhm.
to the programming, their own technicians come in and do this. And a lot of people don't realize that. I think they
Mhm.
believe that, it's like when you buy a TV and you take it
Right.
home and then you program it to do whatever you want with your
Right.
remote, right?
Mhm.
It's not like that. These
Mhm.
corporations sell the product to the elections departments, Dominion,
Mhm.
ES&S, Hardin or
Right.
Civic, whatever you're using,
Mhm.
and then they're the only ones that modify it and work on the equipment. And then we've
Right.
got Runbeck,
Yeah.
right? Who's
Oh,
doing the
Runbeck,
printing,
yeah.
the mailing,
Yeah.
the scanning of our mail-in
Yeah,
ballot.
where's the attorney general? I mean, not the attorney general, the state of Arizona. We know where she's at. She's never going to do anything to investigate Arizona elections, unless, of course, um, she were to lose, then she would probably quickly open an investigation,
Right?
declaring herself the winner or something like that. But where's the U.S. Attorney's Office? Where's the Department of Justice? With respect to Runbeck and its loading dock video from 2020.
Well, and
Right.
that's you're exactly right. So
Right.
we'll talk about the loading dock video as an
Right.
example,
Yeah.
one example. But
Uh-huh.
it is consistent from state to state to state
Right.
to state that these private contractors that are being paid by your tax dollars to serve a
Mhm.
public interest are not subject to public records requests.
Right.
It's absolute absurdity.
And that means that you, as the public, never get to see their records. And that's one of the big reasons that they are starting to farm your elections out to all of these private corporations. And by the way, I mean, a corporation, right? A corporation is accountable to shareholders,
Right,
right?
right.
and
Stakeholders.
yeah, and not to the people of the state of Arizona or the United States. They're primarily accountable to their shareholders or stakeholders, right?
Right.
And so their interests are not the same as a public functioning elections department are, because the public functioning election department interests are yours, right? They're supposed to be the people.
Right.
And so as they transfer more and more responsibility away from the actual governmental operations to private companies and corporations, they are taking away from you, the people, the right to get records related to your elections.
Well, and let's go one step further, and
Mhm.
let's talk about one of your favorite subjects, Brian. CISA. CISA
Mhm.
developed, I believe it was a software program called Einstein.
Right.
And Einstein is supposed to monitor cybersecurity threats and relations, right? But CISA is a public body,
100%.
right? CISA is funded
Uh-huh.
by,
Mhm.
ran by, it is a public
Right.
body subject to public records
Right.
and public oversight, right?
100%.
So what they did is they created the Albert
Right.
sensor, right? So you've got, oh, I don't
Uh-huh.
know, Albert Einstein? No
Albert
coincidence. Do you think there's a coincidence,
Einstein.
Brian?
I don't think there's a
Okay.
coincidence.
So you got Albert
Uh-huh.
sensors, and these Albert sensors, they invasively go into the election maintenance systems, the tabulators, the e-poll books, all of these critical infrastructure departments,
Right.
into all that engineering.
Right.
Okay. And if I say something wrong for all you tech nerds out there, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm doing the best
Just
I can. But
throw eggs at her
Yeah.
side of the screen.
yeah,
Right.
just roll with it.
Right.
So okay, so CIS, CIS is not a public body,
Mhm.
but yet CIS took the Albert sensors and put them all over in tabulators, e-poll books. For those of you that don't know, e-poll books are those systems that check you in at the polls, so they maintain and house all of your voter records and voter rolls. You got your e-poll books, your tabulators, your election management or election maintenance systems where all of the files are housed, and you have a nonprofit
Yep.
in there meddling around, seeing all
Right.
of the inbound and outbound traffic
Right.
that's going in, where even government agencies have gotten uncomfortable, right? They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, no, you want too much access.
Right.
This isn't good."
Well,
But we can't see that, right? Because it's
Yeah.
not a public body.
well, no, we just actually had a case, against the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, dismissed by the court because we sought all communications between the Maricopa County Attorney's Office and CIS. Right.
So think about that.
Right.
I want to restate that. So
Uh-huh.
Maricopa County Attorney's Office,
Right.
the legal body
Right.
for Maricopa County,
Mm-hmm.
had a little bit of communication with this non-governmental agency, CIS, Brian?
Well,
How much?
it was about a 4.5 year period of time. But I just went with a 5 year period of time.
Okay.
Just to be fair to Maricopa County's attorney's office.
Okay.
Right? And so they had a declarant come out and say, "Oh, we have a very limited relationship with CIS." Right?
Okay. So limited relationship,
Right.
a little bit of
Yeah.
communication,
A
right?
little bit, just a little bit. 16,000 plus pages. 16,000 plus pages. If you break that down, on a number of pages per day, that's 9 plus pages a day.
Oh, you already did the math.
Yes,
I don't
already
even
did the math.
communicate with my own mother 9 times a day.
Right?
I'm not even sure I communicate with Steve 9 times a day. Do you?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
That's not a limited relationship.
Yeah, that's
for those of you
It's a
listening.
very in-depth relationship, and I think the reason they fight so hard to keep us from getting these records is I think Albert had access to Maricopa County Attorney's Office, which means the law firm for the county of Maricopa, right? The law firm representing the people in criminal and civil matters. I believe the Albert censor also had access to the Maricopa County Attorney's Office.
So, okay, so you're an attorney,
Yeah.
right? And I'm clearly not one.
Yeah.
But when I think about any invasive body
Oh, I know. Terrible.
gaining access to legal, because there's attorney-client privilege, right?
Oh, 100%.
And
Yeah.
that's there for a reason, so that people have due process and blind justice,
Mhm.
right? But if random people had access to people's legal files,
Well, God, not only that, grand jury information,
oh boy,
right?
right?
Criminal investigations, right? if somebody had access to some non-governmental organization has access to Maricopa County Attorney's Office and everything they're doing, because we know that CIS had a very, very, very broad, we want access to everything when they went into a county,
Right.
right? And
Right.
Maricopa County Attorney's Office is part of the county. And so I think that's one reason they were fighting so hard. I think another reason they were fighting so hard is I think they were violating the civil rights of you. I think they were violating the civil rights of Carrie Lake and possibly even me, right?
Right.
And so we're gonna keep fighting to get those records.
But those
And
things cost money,
yeah, cost money.
as Brian said, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we have to do this. We're practicing today to really
Right.
ask for money, because
Right.
if you're watching this podcast, it's hopefully because you believe in what we're doing. In order for us to keep doing it, we have to be able to keep
Yeah.
the lights on. And but where I'm going with that is that case was denied, right? We lost that case, Brian.
Just on the basis of one of the employees of Maricopa County making statements, and the declarant, that's what they're called. They make this declaration, right, under oath, and so they're declaring certain things,
What
right?
did they declare? There's nothing to see here. Look the other way, and it's too much work anyways.
Right.
So,
Well,
I mean,
he-
what do
he-
you declare? We have
Well, it's
16,000 pages of communication,
Right.
but I assure you, I've read them all,
No,
Your Honor. I've read them all, and they're good.
their declarant never once said they had read every piece of communication with CIS. Never once said that. Did not say that at all. So nobody, and the reason we want to appeal this action
Right, and it
Um,
takes money to
takes
appeal
money.
the action, so
Is
that's why we're making this
because-
pitch today.
Yeah, because under Arizona law, when somebody seeks the court intervention and invokes the court and says, "Hey, we want Maricopa County does not get to simply classify a whole body of records as one thing and thereby deny the public access." And the Supreme Court of Arizona has been very clear about that. That, the big case was against the governor's office, and the governor said, "Oh, wow, these are all this class of documents, therefore you can't have any." And the Supreme Court said, "Well, then lower court, it's your duty to verify that."
Right.
Right. And their declarant never once said, "Oh, hey, by the way, I've read them all, and they're all technical related." Now, see, here's what happened, and this was you gotta give them kudos, right? What happened is CISA, right, the Cyber Security Infrastructure Security Agency, created by
Right.
Susan Spalding, who I've
CIA.
talked a lot about, defined cybersecurity, right, to be technical security, right, of your infrastructure, your intranet, and all of that stuff, as well as language and speech, right? So they created this definition that encompassed all.
Right.
Because, as one of the directors of CISA said, the greatest infrastructure they have to protect is the mind of the American citizen, right?
Right.
As they work to shape how we perceive
I
reality.
think she used that terminology,
She
right?
did.
She said
Yeah.
one of the biggest critical infrastructures
Right.
is
The
is-
most
yeah.
critical infrastructure we have to protect is the American citizen's mind.
Right.
Right,
So
and
the
it's-
CIA is
Right.
informing you, just so you know, I want to break this
Right.
down into layman terms.
Right.
The CIA is informing you that they recognize that the human brain is their most critical infrastructure.
Uh-huh.
So they don't want to influence that at all. do they,
Right.
Brian?
No. Right. And so they come up, they define, the technical, they define speech censorship and regulation, as a technical cybersecurity function, because, that brain is the critical infrastructure, right?
Right.
That they have to protect and shape, right? Because it's just like you got your networks in there.
Mhm.
Neurons, your electrons all popping off, boop, boop, doop, doo, and the more coffee you drink, the more they pop off. But it's this definition. And so their declarant said, "Oh yeah, they're all related to cybersecurity."
Right.
right? And we presented enough evidence to show that cybersecurity meant the regulation of speech, what we typically refer to as censorship. And
Right.
so their declarant never said he read them all, right? He said they were all cybersecurity related, which means they could be about censorship of candidates like Carrie Lake, because we know there was a lot of censorship of Carrie Lake taking place, and we know a lot of people in the Maricopa County's attorney's office were anti-Carrie Lake, and we know Stephen Richer was very anti-Carrie Lake.
Well, I mean, even
Right.
Thomas Liddy. If you
Yeah.
look at Thomas Liddy, who is Maricopa
Mhm.
County attorney, he was representing the election department in the Carrie Lake lawsuit.
Mhm.
He literally, in closing argument, showed a massive amount of bias, prejudice, and
Right.
disdain.
Oh yeah.
So this isn't even something they try to hide,
Oh yeah.
at all. But they are hiding the evidence to help us to make sure that our governments are operating transparently, safely, honestly, openly, not violating our rights,
Right.
following the law. That would be nice if we could just validate that they follow
We
the
could just
law.
follow the law.
Right.
Right. And so the only people that, hey Lincoln, come see here. The only people um that ever said, "Oh no, Maricopa County's office doesn't engage in censorship," were the attorneys in argument. It is never brought out by a declarant
Right.
that the declarant never said, "I've read all of these emails and none of them are about censorship."
Right.
Right? He never once said that. We also asked for, all of their communications with a gentleman by the name of Brian DeValant. Very, very tied gentleman to the state of Arizona.
Hmm.
He worked for a chief justice of the Arizona Supreme Court for a long period of time. He worked as a lobbyist in the state of Arizona. He worked for two different governors. He followed one of the governors to the Department of Homeland Security.
Yes, he did.
And where he worked as, I think, a legislative liaison, which is, another term for lobbyist,
Hmm.
right? A government lobbyist. And so this gentleman's not a technical guy. He's a lawyer trained at Arizona State University. So he's not the technician, and he played a very significant role in CIS, and I believe its censorship operations. There are email exchanges between him and somebody becoming the head of the Department of Homeland Security, where he's saying, yes, we need to. I hope CISA is lodged within DHS because of its proximity to the social media company, right?
Right.
Because if CISA was lodged within the Defense Intelligence Agency, then its function would be overseas, right? But if it's in the Department of Homeland Security, right, its function is domestic,
Domestic. Right.
right, and it's connected then domestically to Twitter and Facebook, both of which we know YouTube were very, very actively censoring Americans' speech,
Right.
right? And so their declarant never denied that they were communicating with Brian. So, my argument was if they're communicating with him, it's not about technical stuff.
Because he's not a technician.
Right.
And so these are the battles that we have to
Yeah.
continue. These are
Yeah.
the battles we have to fight. We want to
Yeah.
appeal that case. We're looking for your support so that we
Right.
can do that. How long do we have to appeal that, Brian?
Oh gosh, it depends on when the order.
Okay.
I don't believe it's been entered yet. I know they've lodged it.
Okay.
And so, yeah, and we've got other cases we need to bring. For example, we had one case in which, was it 10 or 12 judges recused?
Oh, yeah.
Just recusal.
Right. The judges refused to even hear the case.
Recusal, about 10 or
Yeah. They stonewalled us
So-
for 18 months at least.
right. So we're gonna do a public records request hopefully this week to the Maricopa County Superior Court, asking for all documents related to each recusal because under Arizona law, a judge has to take a case unless they have good grounds for recusal. And there, each of these recusals just says recuse. There are no grounds given, and so we don't know why the recusals were happening. But it definitely along the case.
So these are the fights that
And
we need to
these are the
have
fights.
now. We need to
We need to keep
continue
fighting.
keep fighting for these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And transparency is a major, major, major problem because I don't know how many of you guys have heard this, but if you've recently kind of become awake in the last, say, 2 to 6 years,
Hmm.
you'll hear the expression, well, the American people fell asleep at the wheel and that's why we're in this mess. And I'm one of those people that have said that because I believe that. I believe the American people stopped watching what the government was doing,
Hmm.
got busy with their lives, and allowed this out of control government to just take over.
Yeah.
But now the American people are awake
Yeah.
and they want to drive the car again. They don't want to be
Yeah.
asleep behind the wheel. And the government is pushing back. They're
Mhm.
saying, how dare you?
Right.
You sit down, shut up, stay in your lane. We're the experts. We know what we're doing.
Hmm.
Just go back to sleep.
Right.
We cannot afford to go back to sleep
Yeah.
if we want to keep our republic.
Yeah. Well, and so we would sort of have partial disagreement on that. I don't think necessarily we went to sleep of our own volition. I think we were sort of lulled to sleep,
Yes.
and a lot of that comes from when did they do the Credit Scoring Act? At the 1980s,
I believe so.
right?
Right.
And so now people's the most important thing in people's lives are, oh, I got to make sure I got a good credit score.
Right.
Right, and so that completely takes your mind off, what life might otherwise be.
Well, and I agree with you. I don't think we disagree at
Yeah,
all. I don't
yeah,
think people fell asleep because they just decided to be careless.
right,
I think we designed and built a system
right,
that distracts and
uh-huh,
lulls people to sleep. So
right,
I think we're actually very much in agreement.
yeah, and so when you, and this became exceptionally important during COVID, right? Why did so many people get the shot when they
Right.
didn't want to? And it was because, um, employers were saying, we're going to fire you, and without an income, there goes your there goes your credit score, right?
Hmm.
There goes your mortgage. There goes every other thing you own in your life that you've bought on credit, right? Whether it be all of your appliances and furniture bought on your credit card, or your car that you still owe, tens of thousands of dollars on, or your truck that you still own tens of thousands of dollars on, or your boat stuff. And so, you know, i- people, I think for the first time, really experienced what it is like to be a caged animal living in a zoo,
Right.
right? What they experienced for the first time, what it means to be totally trapped, 100% trapped, that you're no longer in control of your life. Your life in its entirety is dictated to you. And so, that's I think that opened a lot of people's eyes.
I think
Yeah.
so too. I
Yeah.
think it was a huge, huge awake.
Yeah.
And I think even post COVID,
Uh-huh.
people are now it's like still waking up.
Right.
I talked to people that if I would have talked to them a year ago, they believed in the vaccines.
Right.
They believed that everything that was done was for the best
Mhm.
interest. They were afraid people were dying. And
Mhm.
now, fast forward just this year, I hear some of the same people saying, maybe I should ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe what
And
they're saying isn't true. And I it took that kind of extreme, I think, for people to be shell shocked out of that stupor.
right.
Just like if you parallel it with elections, just like it took the shell shock of 2020
Right.
to really shake people up and say, hey,
Uh-huh.
hey, wait a minute,
Right.
this doesn't add up. The
Yeah.
math doesn't add up.
Oh, it
Right?
doesn't add up at all. And asking questions, folks, that's how we learn,
Hmm.
right? And I used to be a teacher, and there's really no such thing as a stupid question. If you ask a question, it means that you are working to cure your ignorance
Right.
in regards to something,
It at least
right?
means you have that curiosity, right?
Right.
That desire.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
it's like they say the smartest person in the room can never
Mhm.
learn anything,
Right.
right?
Right.
And that's true because if you're if you're no longer curious, you're never going to learn. So
Right.
people asking questions is a good sign.
Mhm.
It's the sign they want to grow and learn and
Right.
mature,
Right.
right? And they don't
Yeah.
want us asking questions because they don't want us
Mhm.
growing and learning and maturing, right, Brian?
And once your child hits 18 and knows it all, then they'll
That's
start asking questions again someday, right?
well, they
Yeah.
will when the
Yeah.
credit card bills
Right.
start coming
Right.
in, and
Yeah.
right, they're like, "Hey, you
Yeah.
remember that thing you asked
Mhm.
me about?"
Right.
But yes,
Yeah.
this is where we're at, people. So stay
Mhm.
diligent, stay
Right.
involved, stay engaged.
Mhm.
If you're looking for a place to get involved, to volunteer, to donate, reach out.
Right.
We'd love to hear from you.
And are we wrapping?
I think so.
And
And
let's go put those 2
yeah,
images up
please
again real
do.
quick. And so just again, this is a pitch, right? Um, if you're willing to contribute $500, we will send you a 16 by 24-inch aluminum print. I think this is a beautiful image. This is one of the prettiest places in the state of Arizona, especially in the winter, up in the volcanoes of the Flagstaff area. There's a lot of auroral activity the first night in that first image, and this is just a normal night. And so if you would like an image, something, that you can hang on your wall and share a little piece of Arizona, we're more than happy to send you a print on aluminum.
And you can pick it up when it's ready because you have to custom make this, right, Brian?
Yeah, you custom make it, but we would have it shipped directly to you.
Yeah, pick it up and we
Yeah.
could ship it directly to them.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And it's beautiful. It'll
Mhm.
look good in an office.
Yeah.
Anybody's office that would look beautiful.
Yeah.
In your living
Oh.
room,
Mhm.
in a doctor's office.
Yeah.
Anywhere
And
you wanna hang it.
and if you contribute extra, we'll sign it for you.
That'd be awesome.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you all had a blessed Thanksgiving last week, and we're moving into the holiday season.
Mhm.
So cherish your loved ones, spend time with friends, family, and if you can, get out
Yeah.
into the great outdoors. It
Yeah.
really helps
Mhm.
rejuvenate you and
Right.
get you closer to God when you're out there
Mhm.
smelling fresh air, right, Brian?
Oh, absolutely, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. So,
So have a blessed one,
yeah.
and we'll see you next Monday.
Peace.